Russia has announced partial mobilization of troops, a major development in the Russia-Ukraine conflict that had started on the 24th of February. Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced partial mobilization of the Russian forces. Reservists are being called out according to the Russian government. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has also issued a very stern warning to the West, saying Russia had lots of weapons to reply to Western threats. President Putin insists Russia is not bluffing. Big nuclear threat from the Russian president. In fact, in the past 24 hours, Russia has fired a series of long-range missiles at Kharkiv after Ukrainian forces launched a major counter-offensive and pushed back Russian soldiers. The information is that Russian artillery can no longer target Kharkiv. This is the reason that Russia is using long-range missiles. This also, according to the Ukrainian forces, is an indication that Russian forces who abandoned their weapons, their gun positions, their artillery and armor and retreated to the Russian side of the border may be regrouping. In fact, Russia's defense minister has given details of this partial mobilization. Russia has announced 300,000, 3 lakh reserve soldiers are being called out. Contracts of soldiers already deployed since the 24th of February when these special operations had started. Their contracts are being extended to the duration of the conflict. Soldiers in reserve with military experience have been called out. All of this, is this an indication of intensification of operations and escalation in the conflict with Ukraine in the weeks ahead? Russia has also announced a 5-day-long referendum in the newly captured Ukrainian territory. So this referendum is to be held between the 23rd of September, that's 2 days from now, and the 27th of September. And this referendum will take place in Luhansk, in Donetsk, in Kherson, and in Zaporozhye. The area, the territory that's been occupied or now is in Russian control. Russia has also so far claimed that it's lost 5,937 soldiers in this conflict with Ukraine. The figures put out by Ukraine much higher, close to 55,000. Europe, incidentally, European countries, they've hit back at Russia's nuclear threat. Britain has said Russia is breaking its own promise. Germany has called it another bad and wrong step. Lithuania has put its forces on a state of high alert. Latvia has made it clear there will be no refuge for Russians who are fleeing this conflict.
Even nuclear blackmail has come into play. We are talking not only about the shelling of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, encouraged by the West, which threatens to unleash a nuclear catastrophe, but also about statements by some high-ranking representatives of leading NATO countries on the possibility and admissibility of using weapons of mass destruction against Russia, nuclear weapons. I want to remind those who allow themselves such statements about Russia that our country also has a variety of weapons of destruction, and in some areas even more modern than those in NATO countries. And if the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will without question use all the means at our disposal to protect Russia and our people. This is not a bluff. And those who try to blackmail us with nuclear weapons should know that the prevailing winds can also blow in their direction. It is time to implement the experience obtained at the annual strategic drills in practice. It is necessary to timely and thoroughly organize notifying the citizens, ramp up the measures to combat provocations and unlawful activities, as well as security of stations, notifying recruitment officers and collecting citizens. Mobilized citizens will have the status of servicemen serving under a contract and an appropriate level of monetary pay. If we want this war to end, then we cannot be indifferent to how it ends. Putin will only give up his war and his imperialist ambitions if he realizes that he cannot win. In doing so, he isn't just destroying Ukraine, but he's also ruining his own country. This is why we will not accept a peace dictated by Russia. This is why we will not accept any pretentious referenda. And this is why Ukraine must be able to defend itself against Russia's invasion.
And joining me on this big story is Xenia Kondrateva. She's a senior Russian war correspondent, has been at the front lines of this conflict. Xenia, what does the mobilization or President Putin sanctioning the mobilization of 300,000 Russian soldiers actually mean? Where is this conflict headed, Xenia?
Hi, thanks for having me. I think that's definitely leads to escalation, but things still remain to be seen. And a lot depends on, it's not just enough to announce mobilization. We have to see who actually is mobilized, because we see the law that was published and the announcement that was made by Russian President Vladimir Putin and the defense minister. They were quite different from the law that we have seen.
Yes. And why did the Russian president need to issue the nuclear threat or the use of nuclear weapons?
Oh, I think that was quite just a response, because the nuclear option or the nuclear threat has been triggered by many leaders, and the Western media we have seen has been pushing that idea. So I would rather say, I mean, that's a kind of a personal feeling or the reading of what's happening that I have. That was kind of a response. I don't think we should, it's helping us to push that kind of option ahead. I think that's a sort of a public discussion for now.
Okay.
For now.
Okay, and this referendum that is being talked about from the 23rd to the 27th in Luhansk, in Donetsk, in Kherson and in Zaporozhye, at a time when the Russian forces are actually, according to the Ukrainians, retreating from Kharkiv. In your view, and since you've been covering this on ground, where is this conflict headed, Xenia?
See, you have to differentiate between Luhansk and Donetsk republics, and Kherson and Zaporozhye, and particularly Kharkiv, from where the Russian troops have been retreated. You look at the map, you look at geographies, it's very, very different. People in Donetsk and Luhansk, people whom I personally spoke to, because I've traveled to those areas, they have been waiting for this for the last 8 years. So there is no question. I mean, they have been telling me personally that when will Russia go ahead with this? Okay, that's one scenario. But there is a very different scenario in other territories. For example, okay, I've not been to Kherson, and I've not been to Zaporozhye, and I've not been to Kharkiv region. I've not covered those areas, but I've been to Kherson, and I know personally people from there. I've spent all my childhood there. So people there are divided. There is a, it's a Russian-speaking city. There is a Russian-speaking population, and you will see the elderly who are rather inclining towards Russia, and you will see the young people who are not at all inclining towards Russia. It's a complicated matter. Like the entire Ukrainian crisis is very complicated. It's a, when we say civil war, it's just not just words, not just a label. So, I mean, you have to differentiate, and when the Western, when the countries say that we will accept the results or we will not accept the results of these referendums, you have to really treat these events in a different matter, I believe.
Fair enough. Remains to be seen whether these will be impartial. Of course, Xenia, I've reported from Zaporozhye, from Kharkiv and from Kherson, but that of course was the first phase of this war in March and April, and you're absolutely right. While the elderly in some pockets, especially Kharkiv, the Russian-speaking people may be pro-Russia, but also remains a fact Russia hasn't been able to take control of Kharkiv, in fact has retreated. Zaporozhye remains a cause for concern as far as Ukraine is concerned, but we'll be tracking that story very, very closely. For joining me here on India Today, Xenia Kondrateva, many thanks. I want to now shift focus to the other big story we're tracking here on India Today. After Leicester, now a temple has been targeted in Birmingham in the Midlands in United Kingdom. More than 200 people, and look at those images on your television screen. More than 200 people, majority of them Muslims, shouting Allahu Akbar, surrounding the Durga Bhavan temple at Smethwick in the Midlands. One climbed onto a temple wall, behaved in a very disorderly manner. A number of Hindu devotees were inside the temple. They managed to film this. Fortunately, there were a number of police personnel who were deployed on ground. They prevented the situation from worsening. But first Leicester, now Birmingham. Is this the fallout of a cricket match, or is this something far more sinister? We bring you this report.
The communal strife in UK is spreading. What started as a small tiff over India-Pakistan Asia Cup match is now threatening to overrun the delicate communal fabric of the country. The fire in Leicester spread to Smethwick. In the latest provocation, a mob of alleged Islamists were caught on camera menacingly marching near a Hindu temple in the Smethwick area, raising Allahu Akbar chants. The 200-strong mob also raised other Islamist slogans. While cops tried to restore order, a bottle was reportedly thrown at the Durga Bhavan Hindu Center. Many locals saw it as an intimidation tactic.
We're on Nelson Road right now. Stand off with the Hindu mob, as you can see.
The incident comes in the wake of clashes between Hindu and Muslim groups in Leicester last weekend. That time, Islamic groups had burnt a saffron flag outside a Hindu temple. The incident led to dozens of arrests by UK police.
This is a statement of unity.
Joint appeals were made by Hindu and Muslim leaders for peace.
We, the family of Leicester, stand in front of you not only as Hindus and Muslims, but as brothers and sisters.
Are the incidents of communal strife irreparably damaging the British cultural fabric? With Lavina Tandon, Bureau Report, India Today.
In Leicester, a Hindu temple was targeted, a Hindu religious flag burnt, Hindu properties targeted, and yet there was a virtual campaign to target Hindutva. Now again, crowds chanting Allahu Akbar surrounded a temple in Birmingham. What's happening and why? Joining me on India First is an eyewitness from Birmingham. He's requested not to be named. Dishita Kumar joins us from Leicester on the disorder that had taken place there, and Omar Azhar Bhatti is a political analyst and former co-founder of Future of Pakistan Conference, joins me on the show. But I want to go to our eyewitness first. And sir, what can you tell us about what happened outside the Durga Bhavan temple?
Hello, namaskar, good afternoon.
Namaskar.
We went to the temple as we normally do every Tuesday because of special Mataji's Aarti. There were some rumors and WhatsApp messages of potential peaceful protest there, which is perfectly okay in British society. Everybody has right to protest. But when we go down there, there were about 200 to 300 men there in a very angry mood outside the temple area. And there was a lot of noise and aggression there. And the whole environment was quite fearful.
And was there any provocation from the side of the Hindus or those inside the temple that prompted this conduct?
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. They were just quiet witness to see what's happening because they all were surprised.
What were these people, 200 to 300 as you say? Do you have any idea of who they were? Can you identify them? What were they saying? What were they doing?
It's very difficult to identify because they all were wearing a face mask, like COVID mask. So that is one thing. And most of them, they were also wearing the hoodies as well. Their heads were covered. So it's very difficult. Plus they were across and outside the temple barrier, not close enough even to look in the eyes and say who is who. And there's no way anybody would know that many people anyway.
Okay. And were you scared inside the temple? Were there women? Were there children there?
There were children and women, and most of the people who come down there, they are elderly because they are more into bhajan, satsang, dharam kriya than the young people. But there were any young mothers as well.
There were young mothers as well. And
Yeah.
what did all of you go through? How long did this last? What were these people shouting? What were they chanting?
Well, I myself got there at 6:30, and I was there till 8:30. But there is absolutely no doubt from looking at the crowd outside, they must have been there for at least an hour or so.
Okay. Okay. I want to bring into this conversation Omar Bhatti as we reestablish that link with our eyewitness. Mr. Bhatti, why would a crowd of between 200 and 300 people raise slogans like Allahu Akbar, surround the temple, and then one man climb onto the wall, the temple wall, and behave in a rather disorderly manner? Why would this crowd do so?
Well, first of all, my sympathies with whoever's been harmed, whoever's felt afraid, and whoever's been terrified by the members of the Muslim youth who surrounded that temple. Any untoward incidences of violence and provocation are condemnable and absolutely terrible. However, the incident that you're specifically mentioning, and the one that Eyewitness recounted, is also the one where the imam, or a Muslim imam of the local masjid, or the local mosque, tried to ensure that nobody took away the religious flag from the Hindu temple. So they tried to ensure that no such desecration of Hindu symbols occurred. So what I'm trying to get across to you is the fact that while there is a bunch of Muslim youth who seem angered, whose sentiments have been sparked, who seem to have come out aggressively, there remain a significant majority of the Muslim youth and the Muslim population in Leicester who are peace-loving, who are tax-paying, law-abiding, and totally behave in accordance with the United Kingdom's laws and constitution. More importantly, let me get this across to you and the Eyewitness as well, which is that Leicester is perhaps the cultural capital of the world. 7.2% of the population identifies Hindus, 7.4% identifies Muslims.
I must put this to Dishita Kumar, who joins us from Leicester, whether she feels that Leicester is the cultural capital when a temple flag is desecrated, when Hindus are surrounded, when a flag is set on fire, when Hindu properties are targeted. Dishita, do these statistics mean anything to you, that at least an imam prevailed and at least in Birmingham the flag was not set on fire?
So firstly, thank you for having me on board, and all due respect to the gentleman who just spoke. Yes, Leicester has been a multicultural city, but as the world keeps saying, this is sparked by India-Pakistan match. It is not. This has been going on for months on end by minority radicalist Islamist groups that are instigating the Muslim youth to go out and literally evacuate Hindu homes in areas that are predominantly Muslim. That is ultimately the issue that's been happening, and this has been going on for months. At least 2 to 3 months is what the diaspora of the Hindu community has been witnessing. When they are pulling down these flags, they are toppling over cars that have Om symbols on it. Anybody that has a Ganesh statue at the front door, those people are scared. You can see in these areas, which is a Hindu home, because their doors are knocked down. So it's very evident that although this has been a multicultural city, at the moment it does not seem like that at all.
No, and you seem to indicate that this is targeting of Hindus. If a car has an Om symbol, Mr. Bhatti, that car is toppled over. If a house has the Ganesh idol outside, that house is targeted and a temple flag was desecrated. Mr. Bhatti, would you know how many people have been taken into custody, and would you know the background of those who have been taken into custody?
So for the moment, from what I have heard from Leicester police, they've arrested a total of 15 people in the string of events that have taken place in the past couple of days. And those 15 people happen to be from both sides of the aisle, from the Hindu community and the Muslim community. So we have to understand here, and my sympathies with members of the Hindu community who've been targeted, whose religious symbols have been desecrated, but it is also important to ensure that we don't paint an entire community with the same brush. And more importantly, we need to understand the fact
Mr. Bhatti, if you don't want the community to be painted, I just want to ask you, is the community taking any action against such elements, or are these elements actually being eulogized and glorified, or are they the new Baburs and Taimurs?
What the community has done is, and as you've shown in your prelude, which is that the Hindu-Muslim leaders, the local community leaders got together for a press conference. Muslim imams of the local mosques have called for ending violence of all sorts. They've called for peaceful resolution of the entire matter. And more importantly, they're cooperating with the police as well. Let me add to this one final bit.
After what the peace committee happened, there was violence in Birmingham. Dishita, before I bring in, let me bring in the eyewitness also. But Dishita, go on. You wanted to make a point, ma'am.
Let me add to this.
This is exactly the thing. I do agree. There are a lot of Muslims that are peace-loving, and it's not the full Muslim community. I agree, but to what level are they condemning these Islamists is the thing, because at the end of the day, on the ground, these Hindu homes, people are evacuating their homes. That's the sad affair of what's happening in Leicester, and it's only a matter of time until this happens in Birmingham, Nottingham. So I don't know, condemning, just saying it as a sweeping statement when two community leaders coming together is one thing, but actually doing something about it, and the next day there not being a riot, then you can say, okay, the Muslim community at large has come together and has stopped this.
Absolutely, Mr. Bhatti, that's the point I was coming to. So, you know, the Hindus and the Muslims get together and they talk peace, and then we watch this.
And that's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to. What I'm trying to get across to you is the simple fact that if you want to call a bunch, so if you really look at the chronology of the events, everybody keeps pointing to us, including Sunny Hundal of the deputy editor of Independent
So I don't want individuals. No, I'd rather go by what you have to say. No, are you trying to tell me what's happening in Birmingham is linked to what happening in Leicester?
Absolutely not. Both are entirely.
So let's keep that out, because
events have been instigated by entirely different communities. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I am just very disappointed that people are trying to justify what's happening in Leicester when a community is being targeted, where their homes are being targeted, when their religious flags are being taken down, and you know somebody is trying to draw false equivalence. Tell me, sir, has a single mosque been targeted? No. Has a single Muslim been targeted? No.
Nobody.
Has a Muslim home been targeted? No. And yet we see this false equivalence. I'm sorry, sir. Let's learn to call a spade and call out those who attempt to do this. But I want to bring in our eyewitness once again. Sir, I want to understand from you, was there any provocation for this kind of behavior for 200 to 300 people who surrounded a temple and was chanting Allahu Akbar and intimidating people? Are Hindus feeling intimidated, sir?
Is that the question for me, sir?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I can say, because being a person on the premises of the mandir itself, not one single Hindu devotee chanted anything that would incite aggression or violence.
Okay, I will try and reestablish that audio link once again, but Dishita Kumar, is there an equivalence, that is this community A and community B in equal measure taking on each other, or is one side the victim and the other side a perpetrator?
I think
I'm talking about Birmingham,
anybody,
specifically Birmingham first, ma'am.
I think this is basically what's happened in Leicester, because this is where it kind of started. Within this Muslim majority area, that's where it happened, where they started attacking the Hindus that are living in the areas, and literally these people are pushed out of their homes. There are 10 houses that are empty right now that were Hindu homes, and they're living in random people's houses across Leicester and outside, and they cannot go back home. They're too scared to enter the area now. And this is what trickled into Birmingham. And there were messages floating around saying that just because Jai Shri Ram chants were chanted, now these Islamists are moving to Birmingham, Nottingham and Manchester. And the Muslim community, I don't know what they're doing, but they're clearly not condemning them enough to stop these things.
Omar Bhatti, would you find this situation worrisome? If
Yes,
Hindu homes, people are leaving their homes and going to safer areas in Muslim-dominated areas. This also is rather sad commentary on the state of affairs as far as the security forces and the police are concerned, which means they're unable to provide security to Hindus in a Muslim-dominated area in UK.
Let's get the facts clear first. Number one, 7.4% of Leicester is is dominated by Muslim community. 7.2% of the community identifies with the Hindu religion. Let's not say one side is completely vulnerable to the other. Secondly, and please try to understand this, you've called people attacking Islamists, but we've seen propaganda videos being shared on Indian WhatsApp across Britain. We've seen propaganda videos and literally members of the Hindu community inciting violence against the Muslim community. We've seen local mob leaders and local ringleaders from both sides trying to capitalize on the situation.
Sir, I asked you a simple question, sir. I asked you a simple question. A single Muslim home targeted, you said no. A single mosque targeted, you said no. I'm sorry, sir. I am sorry. There may be this propaganda machinery that may be trying to draw false equivalence.
Can I come in?
Dishita wants to respond. Go on, ma'am.
Can I just say, so there's not a single Muslim that's living in a Hindu majority area that's being evacuated. Neither do they feel threatened. They're all living in their own homes. I'm talking about Hindu families that are staying in Muslim majority areas.
So you're aren't you one?
Please let me finish. Then
I happen to be somebody who analyzes the affairs on ground. I'm not on ground in Leicester right now. I'm somebody who analyzes what is happening between the two communities, who's in touch with the people.
Analyzing and being an eyewitness are two different things. So
Fair
what
enough.
I'm trying to say
okay, respond now. Sir, let the lady finish, please. Go on, ma'am.
Let's look at facts. Facts are Hindu families have been evacuated. They've been forcefully taken out of those areas by violence and attacks. This has not happened in Hindu areas where there's Muslims living there. They're peacefully staying there. Hindu families are not doing anything to them. You need to at least accept that, because that is the reality.
Like I said, there are mob leaders and local ringleaders who are capitalizing on religious sentiments and trying to portray as local community leaders, which is exacerbating the problem. On 28th of August, we heard a large number of members of the Hindu community chant Pakistan Murdabad, which sparked this latest round of events. We have seen the Leicester police, we've seen the Leicester police arrest members not just from the Muslim community, but members of the Hindu community as well. I'm trying to get across to you the fact that all violence is condemnable, that any untowardly attacks committed by members of the Muslim community are condemnable, that imams of the local Muslim mosques have called out violence and specifically asked for negotiations.
Mr. Umar Bhatti, I want to understand from you.
The problem
when a community
after your imam says don't do it, and then 300 chaps turn out on the streets and start this behavior, either the imam is not putting his heart in it or he's not being heard.
It is vehemently wrong, and I would urge you to show images of the Muslim imam on ground who tried to ensure that religious flag wasn't taken off or taken down from the temple.
And the Hindus should feel grateful that in one place the Hindu flag wasn't taken down. So Hindus now are at the mercy of an imam and not the law of the land, Dishita Kumar. Is that the impression then? Dishita Kumar wants to come in.
Sorry, what was that?
No. The situation on ground right now, is this fear Is this fear in the Hindu community rising is point one, and point two, the arrests that have been made, and we are told more than 45 arrests have been made so far. Are the ringleaders being jailed, or is action according to what you want? Respond, ma'am.
So there is 100% fear within the community, there's no doubts. At the moment, the community is feeling threatened. The Hindu people who are living outside of their own homes are wondering, will they ever go back to their own homes, or what are they going to do with these houses that they have earned, obviously with their hard-earned money. And these are slightly socioeconomically deprived part of the Hindu community. So you can imagine when you are forced out of your own home and you don't know if you can ever go back home, and this has been going on for 2 months, there will come a time where they will want to give courage to the rest of the community that we are here for you. And that's when they went and chanted Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram, to give strength to the rest of their communities. And at that time, it was the Islamists that attacked the protests when they went and chanted these slogans just to give courage.
Let's sincerely hope. I've run out of time on this part of the show, but Mr. Bhatti, Ms. Kumar, and the Eyewitness for joining me here on this India Today special. Many thanks. Let's sincerely hope that the police take action against all those who are responsible for this situation.